People that were there who found it beneficial? Yeah. So we haven't recapped it because of, or some of missed it accidentally or whatever, that's okay. We haven't recapped it because of the confidentiality stuff, but there's a few slides, I'll stick them up on Blackboard, I'll get a chance over the weekend and that. Just speaking of Blackboard, I put up a reading on HRM for you all. Did you see that? Well, how could you see it if I didn't tell you, I suppose, but yeah, just do not disturb, right, okay. Teaching materials 8064, 8076, commercial awareness, and HRM. So it's that reading there, right? There's a scan of a reading there, just if you want to have a look at that. I'll talk you through the exam rubric in a second. Just to say as well, people from 8076. Who's from 8076 here? Imenges or others? And the recap isn't working, no? I hadn't realised that till today. Yeah, so apologies, because all the stuff is on 8064. Have some of you been using 8064 recap? Yeah? Who's been using recap? You know what recap is? So it's working for some of you, right? 8064, yeah? The lectures. The recordings, they're not popping up in 8076. I sent an email to the helpline, and they should be up in the next couple of days. In fact, the same thing happened last year, I recall now. Sometimes when a module is linked, like you've got two modules in the classroom, sometimes it can play havoc with recap. So apologies for that. If I'd known before now, you should have told me. But if I'd known before now, I'd have sorted this. But or I should have thought to check maybe as well. So recap recordings. I'm on 8064 there. And there they are. Yep. All right. So everything there. So sorry for 8076. You should be able to see all of those. So I will try and get it sorted before Christmas. Okay. Look, just the other topic that I wanted to cover off today was sustainability, and I suppose sustainability may or may not come up in some of your MSc modules. But looking at it from a commercial context, because it is something I think that will appear in your working lives, is people will be looking to you to measure carbon footprints and so forth, and they'll be looking to you to do some sort of a business case for this. You know, why should you worry about environmental impact? Okay. I mean, why should you worry about environmental impact? Why?
So the Earth is the universe.
The Earth, okay. And the next generation in that? Why else?
Next generation.
Laws.
So there's laws, regulations, yeah, very good. We might be forced to do so. Any other reasons?
Company ethics.
So company ethics. Anything else? Yeah.
Expensive fees.
Okay, it's fees for...
For violating the regulations.
Okay, alright, for violating the regulations and that. So there may be a cost imperative. In actual fact, very good, folks. I don't know if you've been looking at the slides before class, because I have a slide in here. I just jumped to the third slide there, and it actually talks to this. So this is exam question 9. And just going to the third one, actually, that we talk about green and we talk about sustainability interchangeably. And we have these drivers from them. Social responsibility, just your customers telling you. There's an acronym, a little 3-letter acronym we can use for that. Has anybody come across CSR? So corporate social responsibility. So like your annual report, it says that I don't pollute the environment. Well, prove it. All right. So social responsibility and CSR initiatives and that. There's market pressure, similar thing, I suppose. That's more from the regulators. That's more from your customers or maybe your competitors, what they're doing, that you're out of sync with others in the industry. Cost reduction, we'll see in a while how you can save costs by being more sustainable. You notice a lot of the supermarkets, for example, they don't give free plastic bags anymore. These plastic bags typically pollute the environment, right? Who's saving money there? Hmm? So, well, and the people who were giving them to you for free previously, right? You used to always get your plastic bag for free. Now, if you want a plastic bag,
Sorry, yeah.
So they've turned something that used to be a cost into a revenue source. Very clever. Right? So we can actually see our packaging. My kids the other day, they ordered headphones, Skull Candy headphones. Okay? So I get this box, it's a huge box. What the hell? They said, did the headphones come? And I said, no, I just got this big box. Maybe it was some computer stuff. And I opened it, it's a tiny pair of headphones. And there was a bag, they gave, apparently Skull Candy are giving a free bag. You buy 2 pairs of headphones. I hadn't known this was in the box as well. But still, we'd have packaged it in something like that. Instead, the box was that high. And there's legislation now that you can be prosecuted. Legislation up there. You can actually be prosecuted for over-packaging goods. Somebody was prosecuted a few years ago. So lots of reasons why we might be more green or sustainable. This word here, green or sustainable. All right, coming at us from different angles. I'd say the last 10 years or so, it's become really a hot topic, and I think in your working lives it's going to become more pronounced. So I skipped over a slide there just to give you the previous one. And here we're talking about environmental sustainability, all right, as opposed to maybe economic sustainability. Economic sustainability is making sure that my business, makes a return, that I can stay in existence next year, 10 years' time, and so forth. All right? We're talking about environmental sustainability. Seeks to ensure that decisions made today do not have an adverse impact on future generations. Is that all right? Okay. So that's what we're talking about. I've only half a dozen slides or something, so this is easy. The questions in the MCQ are even easier, so we'll glide through this. All right. We have the drivers. Now, so it all sounds good, right? But there's a thing called greenwashing. Anybody come across greenwashing? Anybody hear that term before? Greenwashing? Okay, so I've come up with a little, I'm not so sure if you can see it there, but you can Google that. There's an index now called the Greenwashing Index. And this is basically, the way companies advertise, are they always telling the truth? Companies, when they advertise, do they tell the truth? Volkswagen advertises and said I have the lowest emissions, do you believe them? Okay. So, of course, we don't believe any of this stuff, right? Now, there's laws and regulations around that as well, which can control it. But this organisation, I've never come across them until the other day I started getting the slide. The Greenwashing Index. It's whitewashing, but with a green brush. It's basically, look, maybe I'll try and read it to you here, because this small. Our hotel chain calling itself green because it allows guests to choose to sleep on the same sheets and to reuse the towels. Ever see that in a hotel? If you don't want your towels changed to save the environment, leave them there. Who's saving money? Hotel. And meanwhile, what it's saying here is, but actually the hotel does very little to save water and energy where it counts, on its grounds, with its appliances and lighting, in its kitchens and with its vehicle fleet. Okay? So that's greenwashing. So we can say that we're a very green university. All I know is someone probably has the heat on and we have the window open, right? Okay? So that's contradiction, turn off the heat. So that's greenwashing. Now the point I want to get across to you with this previous slide is that a lot of companies that today are very green, are very sustainable, a lot of them will have gone on a journey which was going along greenwashing first. We don't actually believe this stuff. We think it's all just PR. What's PR? PR? Public relations. Yeah. It's all just publicity. It's all just spin. Have you come across this word before, spin? Those of you who are not English native speakers, so just if you Google that word spin, so spin means to kind of tell a lie. To spin is, if you wash your clothes with this type of detergent, they will become cleaner than clean. That's spin, right? It's just spoofing. Or you gotta watch a series on Netflix, all right, because it's the best thing ever. And then Netflix, junk. Right? There's so much junk on Netflix. Right? It's just all about watching a movie and then I fell asleep. Right? Okay. So you get the idea, right? This is spin. This is kind of telling lies about things and that. So now I'm not going to bore you with the literature, but just so spin is kind of a slang term. Okay, this isn't an official term. It's a slang term. A lot of companies, when they've become more sustainable, they've actually gone on that journey first through greenwashing to pretend. And if you look at the literature in sustainability, it does talk to this. I mean, they can actually prove that companies, I won't name names, but some big names today that have very good green sustainable credentials. For a while they just engaged in a lot of publicity. And then they came along and they discovered, oh, we can actually save money from this and do the right thing, and so on and so forth. I mean, a company I love is Marks and Spencers. And anybody know what their marketing slogan is? What's their plan called? Plan A. It's plan A. And plan A because there's no plan B. You know? It's quite clever actually. Now we've done work with them, and I'll show you a slide that comes from some of their stuff later on. And they're a company that really gets it in terms of sustainability and the environment. Right? And they save money by doing this. Okay. Carbon footprinting. Any of you do carbon footprinting before? Anybody done some carbon footprinting? Okay, so I'll show you the techniques and the ways of doing it in a while. And I suppose the third point that we're trying to highlight there is, and just read this text with me. When designing products, think not just about the product itself, but also the wider end-to-end supply chain and how this can be made more sustainable. So I design a glass bottle. How can it be recycled? How can it be distributed? How can it be packaged? If it goes wrong, how can it be repaired? There's a carbon footprint associated with all of those activities. And that's a thing that's come to be known as DSCE, Design for Supply Chain Efficiency. Right, you'll find that today a lot of products they're just designed for kind of marketing, sales. People don't actually think about the costs that will be associated with handling this product, with recycling it and so forth. A friend of mine worked with Flextronics, big contract manufacturer. I remember the marketing guys, he tells a great story, the marketing guys came in one day and they said, we have a new mobile phone and we're going to do a special marketing initiative to sell a peripheral with a mobile phone. But as a result, we'll need a different type of packaging. Now those packages are bigger, a bit like my Skull Candy packages, so less fit in a pallet. Now less pallets fit in a container, and so forth. The logistics people, when we do logistics in semester 2, we look at that. I bring in examples from Marks and Spencers of boxes that are designed to fit in a pallet, because the pallet fits in the container, and so forth, that you use all of the space. That's designed for supply chain efficiency. But people were designing that mobile phone or that marketing campaign, they hadn't woken up to the fact, hang on a sec, and just after adding 40% to my distribution costs, I had this seemingly clever marketing idea. Okay? So that's DFSCE. If any of you have come across the acronym before, DFX, has anybody come across that? Just in design. DFX is designed for what? Why do you design a product? To sell it? To make it look nice? Yeah, to attract customers. Like, what's your objective?
Make money.
So to make money, maybe it's profitability in that. But oftentimes we have to cascade that down into the specifics. All right, it might be that it's the most saleable or the smallest bottle or the whatever. Does everybody have a shower and wash your hair? You know? Right. And do you know the bottles of shampoo with the lid that twists up? The lid goes into the back, or the hook, and you twist it out and you put it up. That's designed for supply chain efficiency. Why does the hook fit into the bottle of shampoo? You know this idea here? So you have a bottle of shampoo, right? And previously there used to be a lid like that. Now there's no lid like that. Instead you've got a hook and it's built into the back. Why do we do it like that? You know what I'm talking about, right? A shampoo that's like a beer bottle. You don't get those anymore. Instead, we don't have that. The hook reclines back into it. Why?
Maybe decreasing your transport costs, but also
Absolutely.
by indenting the bottle.
Pardon?
By indenting the bottle for the hook, you're going to make it look like a bigger product.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And of course as well, a byproduct as well, it's efficient, right? I can actually take it out and hook it onto the side of the shower and that. So we've achieved multiple objectives. And that's real design for supply chain efficiency, because what they found now, of course, is that if I try and stack bottles like that, I have dead space. You get the idea? I have dead space. Just shift it up to the top there. Right. I have dead space on the top one. Yeah. Anyway, we look at that type of stuff in logistics in semester 2, those of you that are doing it. So that's DSCE, Design for Supply Chain Efficiency. Okay. So greenwashing, you know what greenwashing is? I'll talk to you about Red Bull in a second. I'll just maybe cover off some of those other ones. Now this is a cool article. I want you to have a look at this if you had the web link for it, but you don't. So IKEA, anybody see this the other day? IKEA Group plans €1 billion investment in recycling companies and forests. How many of you shop in IKEA? Have you been? Robert, of course. I assume, by the way, you discovered Robert doesn't really like IKEA. Do you remember? Strategy. Actually, he doesn't like. Okay, that's fine. I actually really like IKEA. It's so simple. It's so efficient. It's so. A lot of logistics people like IKEA because of the systems thing and that. IKEA is local. It makes a lot of money. There's a lovely article. It appeared in the Guardian newspaper the other day. Let's just see there if we can get so GUARDIAN newspaper IKEA green. Let's just see if I get it here quickly for you. Oh yeah, this is probably the article actually. Yeah. And all this crap. Sorry. Go away. Right. Now the company is after doing some sort of clever financial thing whereby it's selling its logistics assets, I think, is it, to the group, and it's saving €1 billion, or it's making €1 billion. But I just spotted a few things in it there. They're investing money basically in forests as well as recycling companies and so forth, and it wants to have zero emissions. Wants to be carbon neutral. What's that mean, carbon neutral? Just try and get the... So no carbon footprint. In other words, if I pollute the atmosphere, why would IKEA buy a forest? Do they sell trees? I don't even think it's for the products, for the timber. Why else would I buy a forest? What do forests inhale? CO2. You inhale oxygen, you spit out CO2, and that affects the bird. Trees absorb CO2. So that's what we mean, and sometimes we call it like a carbon sink. I mean, the forests, they absorb carbon, the carbon sink. So what IKEA are basically doing is they're saying, right, we know we create a carbon footprint, okay, we can measure that, but we'll create a carbon sink that will actually absorb some of that carbon in that. Right? Very, very forward-thinking company in that. I'll just see if I can find that. Can you find that piece of text in it there? Pledge to invest. So investing $1 billion in buying those. Oh, pledge last. Right, there it is. There. The investment comes on top of €600 million pledged last year for investment in renewable energies. IKEA works towards energy independence by 2020. There's a link, obviously, sitting. Oh, there we go. Right. Okay. There's a link sitting behind that. All right. Okay. So it's quite good. Yeah. So what you'll find is you'll find certain exemplar companies, IKEA, Marks and Spencer, that are quite. So this is not greenwashing. This is actual. They're putting their money where their mouth is, basically. All right. So you find that yourselves, won't you? Just IKEA, Guardian newspaper. Right. So the other piece then in that is to map a carbon footprint. And there is a... Anybody come across the Carbon Trust? Carbon Trust is a UK NGO. What's an NGO? Non-government organisation. I think they make a profit. They actually sell software and capability and systems that you can map your carbon footprint. Okay? Well, mapping a carbon footprint is a notoriously difficult thing to do. Alright, so if you want that carbon, that is carbontrust.com is the website. You can go on it yourselves and have a look at it and see. So carbontrust.com. To give examples, it's one of these websites you can then pay, like a subscription thing to pay to have a look at if you want more details, if you want them to do your carbon map for you. It's quite an interesting tool. Slide and nothing there. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, I skipped over something there. Just back to that slide there. So the second one there, I'll show you the pictures. It's like carbon footprinting. Key here is deciding on your boundaries. What do we mean by boundaries when we're measuring carbon footprint?
Limits.
What's your limits? So what might the limits be? So you want to measure the carbon footprint of whatever, bottle of water. Right? Measure the carbon footprint. So how are you going to measure it? Come on guys in the back there, how are you going to measure it? You've been talking for 22 minutes, exactly, the time here. So how are you going to measure it? Come on. How are you going to measure the carbon footprint? So the carbon footprint of the bottle of water, like what? Am I going to include the packaging? Transport. What about the workers that made the bottle? We're going to people that make it, right? Like, do I measure their carbon footprint that they have to drive to work? Or what they ate for breakfast to give them energy to make the bottle of water? You see the idea? There's a friend of mine, mechanical engineer, who proves that cycling is more carbon intensive than driving a car. Because he basically draws a boundary. He said that if you're driving a car, you need all this energy to cycle, or if you cycle a bike, you need all this energy and eating your food. And if I measure the carbon footprint of the food, that goes into giving you energy and so on and so forth. So this stuff can become crazy. So what I'm saying to you is I can prove that this is a tiny carbon footprint or a huge carbon footprint, depending upon where I draw the boundary. Okay? You know, where do we draw the limits? And that's very, very important. Because there's a lot of nonsense with this. You know, like say IKEA saying we're going to be carbon neutral. Well, I'd like to see the detail that sits behind that. And the second thing is an emissions factor. What's an emissions factor? Emissions factor. So if I say to you that burning a litre of diesel in a car produces X amount of CO2, will that be the same everywhere? There'll be different types of diesel, wouldn't there? And I guess there could be different types of driving conditions. You know? So I guess if I drove all the time, I cruised in 6th gear, low revs. Or if I drove all the time in 1st gear and high revs, I burn different amounts of fuel. So we need a little bit of consistency in terms of our measures in that. And that's what that second one is getting to there. Key here is deciding upon your boundaries and agreeing common emissions factors. Okay, so I'll show you now an example of this thing. I've put it on the website. So we had a guy, Patrick, whose name is on some of these papers here, a researcher with us. Oops. And he measured the carbon footprint of, just go on to the next one here. He measured the carbon footprint of containers coming from Saudi to the UK. Okay? And the containers, some of them had plastic stuff in them, some of them had Marks and Spencer stuff in them. This is just plastic parts to a distributor in the UK. So go back. So you obviously had a protocol to do in terms of interviews and in terms of gathering the data and so forth. So that's what you see there. And he did that. And he tried to map his supply chain and off you went. Yeah. And again, you can see there's something here going on about the boundaries and that. Now, he actually did quite a good piece of work in terms of looking at the entire end-to-end carbon footprint. And he came up with this, ultimately. Right. Now, by the way, this took months. Loads of data, loads of effort, loads of everything, so it's not something that you do very quickly. Now, if you just stay with me in the example, right? The bar chart, the higher the bar, the more carbon footprint we've got. Okay? So this guy's got the lowest carbon footprint. And the bits of the bar, the different colours, now it's all in black and white, so it was a really difficult diagram to draw. They're the different parts of the journey. The UK port, I'll start at the end, Saudi to the Jeddah port operations handling the container in that. The shipping voyage to Europe, which is that one. Port operations on arrival, you can barely see it. Port to supplier, again it's one of the small ones up here. Supplier DC to port operations. The row journey, I'll talk to you about that in a second, port operations and that. Basically, he mapped the carbon footprint depending upon one of three routes. One was to go into Antwerp and go by container from there into the UK. Two was to go into Zeebrugge, which is in Holland, and to go there by Ro-Ro. You know the difference between Ro-Ro and Lolo? So Lolo was lift-on containers. Ro-Ro is where the container is attached to the truck and it drives. Roll-on, roll-off. So roll-on, roll-off, yeah. So lift-on, lift-off, roll-on, roll-off. So yeah, we'll do it in logistics anyway in the second semester. So roll-on, roll-off is the container is attached to the truck and the whole lot drives in the ship. Lift-on, lift-off, a crane lifts off the container and puts it on the ship. It stacks them, basically. All right. So let me just... so we have three routings here, right? Just get rid of that there for a second. And so you've got the origin, you've got the destination, and he's saying that you can go direct, or you can go through an intermediary point. Now, so that's the end-to-end carbon footprint. Here, or here, and then go on from there. All right. In much the same way, if you want to fly home to wherever, Shanghai for Christmas, right? You can go to Amsterdam and fly on from there. You can go to Rome. You can go to London, whatever. I guess you could take the train to London and you could fly direct. Yeah. Okay. So supposing your journey starts in London, we can go direct, or you can go to Holland and go over there. All right. And what he's basically saying is that this carbon footprint here is, shouldn't have used the plus. This carbon footprint, supposing it's 3,000 units, the ones down here might each be 4,000 units. All right, that's effectively what the chart is saying. Why is that? Why? Let me put up the other slide now. So it's saying that if I route directly, I'd have a lower carbon footprint. Why? So the carbon footprint is how much carbon you actually generate. Okay? Or, more to the point, you can see, can you see what the y-axis is here? Kilograms of CO2e. What does the E mean? No, again? Equivalent. CO2 equivalent. And that's very important. Equivalent. Because if I'm transporting something, do I just produce carbon? What else does transport do? What other emissions does it produce? Come on, where are the marine engineers? So you get the particles, NOx, SOx, you get noise. I guess we could put a measure on that. So actually transport doesn't just produce carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, it produces lots of different nasty things. So if I add up all of the nasty things, I can get a measure which we call CO2 equivalent. And that's very, very important, okay? To understand that we may or may not necessarily be measuring just carbon dioxide. We may be measuring all of the nasty emissions, okay? Yeah. I can never spell that word correctly. I don't know if it's 2 M's and 2 S's. There's no spell check around the whiteboard. So it's CO2 equivalent, right? Or as you've measured it up here, people measure carbon footprints in terms of kilograms or tons. Sometimes you see millions of tons of CO2 equivalent as the measure of the CO2. If you get on a plane, some planes when you get on the plane by the door, they'd have a sticker, and it will actually be measures of the carbon footprint per kilometre. You'll actually see that measure in some aircraft when you're board, especially some of the turboprop aircraft. Anyway, we're digressing a little bit. Why, my question to you is, why did the route that goes direct from the Middle East to the UK that doesn't have a stop off like these first two, why does it have a lower carbon footprint? Why, if you fly from London to Shanghai, will you have a lower carbon footprint than if you go from London to Amsterdam to Shanghai? Yeah?
Because if you transport directly,
Yeah.
and this CO2 or something other thing like that
Yeah.
is just produced by you,
Yeah.
and if you give you
A diversion or another leg?
maybe
Yeah.
is combined with others,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, sure. It would be like if during this lecture we had to move to another lecture room after half an hour, right? That's hassle. We're going to lose time. We're going to lose energy, right? We're going to be more tired because we have to walk to another lecture room. It's the exact same thing. But I think now I've given you the references to the papers and I've put them on Blackboard. What's fascinating, to me at least, is if I move in this container from Saudi to the UK directly, I have a carbon footprint of 3,300 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. If I route via Holland and swap onto another ship, I have a carbon footprint of 4,100 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. So how much more is that? 3, 3 to 4, 1, that's 8, 4, that's a quarter. So my carbon footprint has increased by about 24%, just by one little change. Okay. So what's the lesson on that?
Go there.
So, okay, if you want to save your carbon footprint, then you go directly. Okay? But I think the other point I'd take across, I suppose I'd take two other points from it. One, it can be very difficult to measure carbon footprints, as you've seen just from that little example. And two, small things. These guys didn't even think about this when they were working out their routings. Small changes can have a huge effect in terms of carbon footprints. Right? So these guys, just one change of routing pushed up their carbon footprint by 25%. So why the hell then don't they just take this routing? The direct routing all the time? Why not?
Sometimes it's impossible.
That might be possible, might be, why else? Yeah.
Logistics, matching up full ships.
Yeah, the opportunity might be available. It might work, the timings. I mean, anything else. There's one key one. Yeah.
But a flight with immediate intermediate
Stops,
stop is more cheap than a direct flight.
And
Because
oftentimes,
the cost of a direct flight
Yeah.
is bigger even for the company because it has to book the whole plane for a direct flight.
now it may not be dearer because of their costs, but when I was your age and I was a student, and I remember once I flew to America, I think I went through Iceland or some place like that, and that was because the airline figured, well, look, we've one plane going from Europe to Iceland and another from Iceland to the US, so rather than have empty seats, we'll sell it to people that want to go to the US. Well, if they charge the same fare as a direct flight, am I going to take it? I said, yeah, let's pay the same money and be 6 hours longer. So, of course, it'll be cheaper. So now that may or may not be related to the production costs and that as well. Yeah?
I don't know if somebody mentioned that there might be different port costs.
Yeah.
Depending on the port.
Yeah, and of course, so we have to see the whole end to end and where do we draw the boundary and so forth. Now, this guy's boundary was fairly wide. You know, he was including the port CO2 operations, but not the costs and that. All right. So carbon footprint, and this was, as I say, a researcher employed for worked with it for us for 2 years. This particular analysis was a couple of months, right? Getting the data and so forth. Right? How might I force people to take the route that has the lower carbon footprint? So if you're a government and if you say, look, like, I can't have you taking these other routings that have a quarter more carbon footprint, how would I force you to take the one with the lowest carbon footprint?
Making it more expensive.
So how would I make it more expensive? If I'm the government? Fines, charges, taxes, and so forth. Now again, some of you might kind of stray into this territory with your dissertations, so I'm giving you a bit of a primer here on that. And what I suspect with IKEA there, some of that could be going on as well. Sometimes what people do is they give you tax credits. What's a tax credit?
If you're doing some like this IKEA thing,
Yeah.
applying forest,
Yep.
is a government like it might give you.
Don't have to pay as much tax. I know in Scandinavia, if you move stuff by rail, you get tax credits. If you show me that you have spent, say, €100,000 on rail freight bills, you can write that off against your tax. So you can incentivize. So this is a very big space, right? And again, people, just talking to people earlier on today around SOX regulations and all that sort of stuff. It's huge territory actually, and this is why we just spent an hour talking about this in this class with all MSCs, because regardless if you're doing transport or marine engineering or flight line or whatever, this stuff will park up on your front door sooner or later. Now there's 2 papers there. One is that one that we just looked at, which was Patrick's paper on the end-to-end thing. And there's another one down here that we wrote, the role of seaports in end-to-end transport emissions. Seaports, they do a lot of kind of green stuff. You can Google, if you Google green ports, sometimes students do dissertations on this. There's all sorts of interesting stuff about ports, having windmills and so on. Low energy and that. They do cold ironing. So a lot of ports have cold ironing initiatives. So what cold ironing, have you come across this term? So cold ironing is when, if you've got a ship at the port and it needs power, right? It needs power for what's called the ship's hotel, the catering, the restaurant and so forth. Where does it get the energy from? Well, previously they burn heavy fuel oil, right, from their port. Now with cold ironing, what they're encouraged to do is turn off all the engines and the auxiliary engines and plug into the electricity grid. It's like plug the ship into the wall, right? But where does that energy come from? Where does the energy in the wall come from? So we don't know, right? Did that come from a windmill, or did it come from nuclear, or did it come from burning fossil fuels? Well, actually, maybe the ship might have been better off leaving its engines running. No, it probably wasn't, right? Because they really burned dirty fuel, as you know. But you get the idea, okay? They're trying to prove these things. Anyway, you can read the ports paper there, but when we did analysis with ports, a lot of the green stuff they do, if you look at the total end-to-end emissions of moving goods around the world, it's kind of irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'll leave you read the analysis yourselves, but if you measure total carbon footprint, like we did in that slide earlier on, and then look at the role of ports within that, and if they change things and do things differently, it doesn't reduce it very, very significantly. Okay, so there are those 2 ports. Now, I want to show you the IKEA. This is lovely. This one, I don't know if you've seen this before or not. Or not IKEA, Red Bull. Anybody drink Red Bull? Sales will go up with exam time, I'm sure. So folks, the purpose of this lecture, by the way, it's not to give you answers. It's just to give you questions, right? Because I don't have the answers. No one has the answers with this stuff. It's a very new area. It's a very complicated area. I guess if we had more time, we could get into it a little bit more detail. But there's a video here at the end. I just want to show you, just if you want to watch this there for a few minutes. It's a bit slow moving, but it's kind of funny. Gives you wings. A lot of these savings are incremental. You know what I mean by the word incremental? What's incremental mean? What's that mean? Incremental. Was it not by degree? Like it's by bit by bit. You know, you saw Red Bull, they were saying, well, you know, we make the pack smaller, that saves a little bit. And then the cooling can packaging makes another bit, and then using rail makes another bit. And a lot of it adds up. Anybody looking at green shipping stuff? Yeah, just green shipping and the whole making ships more environmentally friendly. And a lot of that space is around more environmentally friendly ship designs and ship marine engineering operations, and a huge literature on it. And when you try and add up all of these different savings, like scrubbers, like using different energy, like cold ironing, different designs, each one gives a couple of percent here and there. If you add it all up, well, actually it might reduce your energy consumption by 30–40%. So that is all I want to say about, I just have two other quick things I want to do with you, but that's all I have to say about sustainability. Anybody any questions on that? So a huge area, right? You know, it's just now with some of your different courses, I suspect you get into this. So who's doing marine engineering? Have you looked at some this space? So maybe in semester 2 you might get a bit heavier into this. I just want to talk to you about two other things, right? I want to talk to you about the exam, the format. We'll do this again after Christmas anyway. And I just want you to, each year, we do a little exercise around about this time when you're all settled in. Very short questionnaire. You needn't fill this up if you don't want to, but you can make my life better by doing it. You can sign it if you want, you needn't if you don't want. Just 4 very simple questions. And just over the next few minutes, if you wouldn't mind, now that you're here, we just want to ask you 4 questions, right? Because you're all MSc students. Now there's NNGs as well. I'd like to hear the NNG. Just if you're NNG, can you say it's NNG? And once we've this done, I'll do the exam. So that's how I would change it, right? Now if you have to go, you have to go. But look, and you needn't answer the question, is that? Where did you do your first degree? What country, what institute? Which other postgraduate programs did you consider? It's just interesting to know, we've been studying marketing, right? So it's important that the university knows about its market and its customers. Why did you choose to come to Newcastle? Right. And then, I think the fourth question here, did any of the university's marketing initiatives help you in deciding to come to Newcastle? I know each year the university have calls prospective students or it sends them emails and so forth. I'd just be intrigued to know, was there anything there that, so this is like marketing, this is like the stuff we did with Nick Hatchley, right? Now, a fifth question I forgot to write down, and I was chatting to our head of school yesterday, and he said to me, will you ask the students, are they happy? Okay? Yeah, just happy studying here and everything. So, well, if we ask them that question, we're only going to invite them to complain. But I guess just if there's anything you're unhappy about, and I'm not saying for a second that we can fix it, okay? But just if there's anything you're unhappy about, just write it up. You say, look, it's too cold, I can't fix that, right? Or, you know, there's too long lectures, or I'm not getting my essays returned in time, or whatever. Just write it down. All right? So we'll leave that circulate for a minute or two, and I'll get the exam stuff up there on the screen. Now, you needn't do this, okay, but it's just valuable information for us to have. So I'm getting this thing ready here. Thank you. Super. As I said, 8076, I'm terribly sorry about your recap. If I'd known about it, I'd have acted on it immediately. So we'll try and make sure we get that fixed in the next couple of days for you. No. So if you're MEng, you might just write on the sheet MEng, otherwise I'll assume you're MSc, right? You can write your name if you wish. You needn't if you don't want it. It's cool. And exams. No. Yes, sir. Thank you. So we can collect them, we can keep them anonymous, that's fine, but we can collect them afterwards. So look, I just, or you can pass them along, or just give them to me at the end of class, it's cooler. But we're talking about the exam, some other ideas might occur to you there, so we can look at those as well. Right, did you, yeah? Yeah. Because the module map thing, so again, just Blackboard. Folks, when you're studying for the exam, right, very important document is this, all right? You see here, gang? Look, and just be very careful here now that you look at the most updated version, all right? Everybody got that, right, gang? So version 3 is the module map, all right? Because I was very specific about that. And so changes I've put in red, and it tells you which exam question per lecture. Okay? So my stuff, the first day, it's going to be question 8. Sorry, it's going to be question 1. And I'll give you another short lecture in January about management gurus, kind of bringing stuff together, maybe show you a few videos of gurus. That's going to be one question. Okay? Ivan's stuff is going to be question 2. And is going to be question 5. Yep.
One
Sorry, did I get it right now? Question 2, question 5. Yeah. Isn't that right? Just talk among yourselves there for a second. Just oh my God. Gee. Hang on 1 second. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
The second one that so it's not including the exam, yeah? The second.
It is. We just shifted the lecture down to here. Still question 2. Is that right? Yep.
Is it only one question?
So I'll tell you the questions now in a sec. All right. But the first thing is to know what's examined and what it counts for, right? Okay. So I've just mapped here the lectures to the questions. All right. Okay. Now the extra stuff, Michelle's stuff the other day is not examined, right? Okay. Business model canvas last week, question 8. Sustainability today, question 9. All right. So there's 9 blocks of questions for 9 broad groups of topics from our course. All right. How are we going to turn that into an exam? Well, here we go. Where did I put the... Just go back. And exam rubric. Now, so that's the front page of your exam only. All right? Now, just for the people for 8076, it's the same thing. It just... It'll be 2 hours, and I've put on the 8076 blackboard the instructions for 8076. It's the same approach, it's just 2 hours and it's less questions because these other people here doing 8064, you had lectures with Professor Birmingham as well. Okay? But the same approach applies to both. It's multiple choice. There is only one correct answer per question. Okay? So each question's there's only one right answer. Negative marking does not apply. All questions carry equal marks. So negative marking means if you get one wrong, you actually get minus marks. You don't, right? Because you could end up getting minus the whole thing. Right? You circle the correct answer. So what you're going to do when you get the exam paper, you're going to give it back in at the end of the exam. All right. So all you need is just a pencil. So you just tick the right answer and give it back in. If you bring it home with you, you get 0. Right? It's simple. Yeah. If you circle more than one answer, so just before you even thought about doing this, don't bother, then you will get 0 marks for that question. Because sometimes people say, look, I don't know if it's question answer A or C, and circle both and hopefully the examiner will be generous. They won't. However, you might make a mistake. And what you might do is you might say, well, look, you know, I thought it was going to be A, so there's A, B, C, D. I thought it was that, but actually it's D. Well, that's okay. Look, you could just put a line through that and say correct answer. Okay? Just once it's clear. Once it's not unambiguous. All right? So if you circle more than one answer, you will get 0 marks to the question. If you make an error or wish to change an answer, then indicate clearly which is your final answer. Any ambiguity will just give you 0. Right? There's no mercy, basically. So, what's going to keep you going for 3 hours? Okay. So 8076 is just going to have this, basically. 8064 will have the 2. So 2 hours for that, an hour for that. All right. So you guys just have the commercial awareness piece.
So just part B.
Part B, but it'll be a separate exam. It will just be called part everything. Right. I'll show you the code. Okay. So with Richard, 12 questions. Answer no more than 9. If you answer more than 9 questions, only the first 9 questions answered will be marked. Okay. Right. So remember I said we don't want you to get minus marks? We don't want you to get 120 marks either. Right? It's only 100 marks. Okay. So Richard, basically you have a choice. Do 9 of 12. Okay? fairly straightforward. All right. So if Richard is